Welcome back, everybody. Inside the Music. I'm your host, StereoRuss. I'm here with the one, the only, Mark Furukawa.
Yes, sir. Owner of Dr. Disc, the music store, and all-around Hamilton ambassador. At your service, Ross. Thank you so much.
That's right. Mark, this interview has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And we tried to set something up around this time last year.
Yep.
And I said to you, and I'll say it again, that you're like in Hamilton, you're like a legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? So it's funny you mentioned that, because I've got a saying when people are like, "Oh, you've been in business over 30 years," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm too dumb to quit." But I learned a lesson from Tim Podesic from Sonic Onion, and he said sort of the same thing, but he said it in a lot more constructive way. He said, "We'll always find a way to survive." So I think if you take sort of a median between those two, that's why I'm still here, and I'm happy to talk to you after this length of time, and I'm not going anywhere. So that's why I just wanted to sum that up for you.
I love that. I love that. And Mark, I gotta say, like, you are one of the staples. I mean, you know this. Maybe the audience doesn't know this. You are one of the staples here in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Again, owner of Dr. Disc Records, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the current still running longest serving record store?
Yeah, we opened in 1991. So Cheapies, which was here a number of years before us, established, I think, in probably in like the late 70s or something. Brian Jason, who owned Cheapies, a Hamilton icon in himself, sold the building, shut down the business right before the pandemic. So his segue out of the music business and business in general, he actually just passed away too, R.I.P. But his timing was immaculate, and he got to enjoy his retirement. And so, with that veteran force out of the Hamilton record retail, that left us. So we're like I said, too dumb to quit. We're here now. Been here. We're in our 34th year, and hopefully we'll have 34 more. There's my optimistic streak for you.
You know what's funny about 34? So I think 34 years, like, yeah, okay, that's an amount of time.
Yeah, it's a chunk.
But then when you say the year that it opened, my brain goes,
oh yeah,
whoa, that was
yeah.
1991, correct?
Like, if you're talking music, like, pre-Nirvana, Nevermind, right?
That's right.
So I mean that then you're like pre-grunge, which is like, people talk about it now like it's this ancient movement. Like I used to talk about the punk movement, for example. So there are these sort of iconic times in popular music history, and that's sort of what I echo the store on. It's like the second coming of punk with grunge. And
it really was. Yeah,
it really was. It really shook up the music industry, and I was glad that the store was open to witness that, because it was a revolution.
It was kind of a renaissance. So take me back to those first days in 1991.
Crazy times,
early 90s,
crazy times.
For those who weren't around at that time, I was a bit younger, but I could still know, like, CDs existed but weren't quite happening. It was tapes primarily. And vinyl, is that accurate?
Yeah, CDs were really starting to hit their stride, actually. I think the first CD came out in 84, the first commercially available one. So they had come into vogue, and they really were picking up steam. And from my terrible memory, the store when it started was maybe 50-50 vinyl and CDs as far as retail space went, and then vinyl started shrinking. The men in suits who guide the music industry were like, let's phase out vinyl. We've got this brand new format. Vinyl's dead. So the vinyl section went from half the store down to like a little bit in the basement, and now it's like 85% of our retail space back again is vinyl. But yeah, it was the 90s, early 90s were a crazy time for music, and sort of not a great time for downtown Hamilton, let's say. It was pretty lawless down here.
Yeah, take me through that. So I'm an import from the suburbs, and I came here, call it 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
So tell everybody a little bit of, like, Hamilton in the early 90s, because you originally were from, I want to say London, but that might be...
I went to University of Western Ontario, so I spent a ridiculous amount of time goofing around there and trying to find myself. And what London led me to was music as a career. It was more of a hobby when I was DJing, and around music when I grew up in Barrie, and then when I went to Western in London, I'm like, oh, I was just started DJing, and I'm like, I gotta find the coolest record store with imports and stuff like that. So that's where Dr. Disc started, was in London, and they had
so the original one wasn't in Hamilton.
No, it was London.
Okay,
so it was started by I'll just digress for a minute here. It was just started by a family, and this fellow who's a really interesting Russian Jew named Sid Atlan, and he had a son, Daniel, and he just opened the store for something for his kids to do for a summer, and it was in this he took over this little shoe store location, and it was literally a shoe store.
Was it close to the university?
Not really. It was down the street a bit, but it was on Clarence, which is just right near Richmond Street, which is their main drag there. So it was maybe 3 miles south of the university, but he just took over this little cobbler's place, and it was this tiny little place. And when I got there, it was the year they just moved into a larger location next door. And so I started hanging out there because they had really cool. They were one of the only ones outside of the Record Peddler in Toronto who were doing direct imports from the UK. And that was sort of like my eye-opening kind of thing for music, and coming from a small town Barrie into a larger city, London, it was hugely multicultural in comparison.
What records were you looking for at the time?
I was more into like dance music, and for me, a really exciting time was like, I got there in '84, so it was like hip hop was burgeoning. That was sort of the punk rock at the time, was hip hop. Like, it was this musical commodity that just radio didn't really know what to do with in Canada, and nobody really. It was like this.
Was it hard to find
music.
Vinyl too?
It was really hard.
Yeah.
And since that was the only real medium to play music in clubs, I had to go where the music was, and I was kind of literally hanging around the store so much. They just said, "Here, clean this up for us, do this, do that," and I just started working there. I became friends with the family and the son who did all the ordering there, Daniel, and that's where I got my job. So it took me 7 years of lackadaisical meandering to finish my 3-year BA because I'd started DJing in London, working at Dr. Disc, and it was sort of like this. I knew that I had to do something, keep music in my life, because just the people, the culture, the actual music, I was just embedded in it. And my parents were like, they were thinking, oh, you should try to be a doctor, a lawyer, but let's just, they were really free.
And he'll phase out of it.
Yeah, maybe it's a phase, and maybe he'll do something else, but I didn't. And so I got my 7-year, 3-year BA, and they were in the middle of expansion.
Is that Dr. Disc?
Dr. Disc, yeah. So small family-owned business, and their idea sort of was to circle Toronto and then open a Toronto location. So they already had Kitchener and Windsor. They had a St. Catharines store before us, and then we were the next store, I believe the 4th or 5th store. And they said, hey, we're opening a store in Hamilton if you want to manage it. And then they offered a partnership. So I went to the bank of mom and dad, who ponied up some money and brought me to Hamilton. And when I got here, it was like, man, I had been here. There were weird family ties because my mom's mom lived on the mountain, my grandmother. So I knew the city.
Knew the city.
Well, just from when I was a kid.
Yeah. Like you knew of it, you knew where it was.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody here. There was like a couple of my mom's family friends were here. But when I came here, it was really lawless downtown. Like people I was at Western with in London were like, where are you moving to? Like Hamilton? Where the hell are you going there? What's there? So there's going to be a Dr. Disc, and that's why I'm going. So we scouted out a few locations. Sid, the original proprietor of Dr. Disc, was in the mortgage business, so he knew real estate and patterns and traffic, and and this was one of the 3 locations where we are now, was one of the ones he scouted out. And there were going to be 3 partners, and then it eventually, one partner backed out, so the family owned 2/3, I own 1/3. And came here, opened up shop, and I guess the rest is history. But it was crazy down here because downtown Hamilton, now it's gone through this renaissance where it's much more acceptable to be downtown. Despite all the homelessness and the prevalence of drugs and stuff these days, it's a lot more favorable as far as investment, businesses trying to start something downtown. Back then, it was like, man, it was a ghost town here. It was a ghost. I think the only cafe down here was like Tim Hortons. That was the only thing. There weren't independent businesses. There very few. I should say none. But when we opened, it was almost like we opened because there were record stores in the area. So we wanted to be in that sort of circuit, if you will. So there was HMB was here, Sam the Record Man. There were 3 or 4 independent stores. So we were one of about 6 or 7 stores within a mile radius, and that's why we wanted to be in that circuit. Because if you're the record shopping guy, you go to one, you go to the other, you develop a little circuit.
You turn into Saturday or Sunday. You kind of do a whole thing. Yep, 100%.
So
100%.
and Hamilton, we knew from research. I didn't know personally, but we knew from research that it was a music city in a sense that really deeply embedded musical style or backbone, if you will. And I liked it because it was working class. I came from London, which was more affluent, more like, the main industries there were healthcare, insurance thing. And here was like Stelco and DeFasco was a lot more grittier. And I kind of like that. And I think the people here as a result, and back in the day too, this is another digression, but really under the shadow of Toronto. We still are to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But really under the shadow of Toronto, people here were afraid to do things. And so I think that kind of hesitation has kind of dissipated now, and people are like, yeah, let's do it. But, the bad thing is, in a sense, that Hamilton's more affordable than Toronto. So you get a lot of these speculators coming in buying real estate, or people with a bit of money, and and for good, in a sense, that they'll try different things here, because versus like remortgaging their house 95 times in Toronto to try and get a business off the ground and putting everything into it, they can do it for a fraction of the amount of money here and try it out.
And if it works, it works. If not, it's like they didn't lose.
So I mean, there are two sides to that coin. There are two sides to that coin. Like over the years, rents have skyrocketed here. A lot of the creatives and artistic population have moved east, which seems to be just the sort of the way things happen. And with the lower rent and more available space that's not being snapped up. But even that, like this development on Barton Street, et cetera, like that. So
and I'm noticing a lot of artists. For myself, I talk to a lot of musicians in the community, this and that. A lot of them move home.
Yeah. No, very true.
And so they're not downtown and like hanging. They're in Bimbrook, or they're in Stony Creek, or wherever they may be, or in Ancaster. They're not downtown.
Very true. The rents have skyrocketed here. I remember when I tried to buy the building. This is fast forward 2006, and real estate prices hadn't really bumped that much here, but I couldn't get a mortgage. It's just no bank would.
They wouldn't even give it to you because of the risk.
Yeah, because they so say I failed, and I went bankrupt, they'd take over the property.
And they'd have to liquidate it, and they wouldn't be able to find a buyer.
No, so I had to scramble around and basically call in every favor I had and every credit line I had to get money to pay cash.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I mean, when you think about that, it's like, well, how did you get together $1 million? Well, it wasn't $1 million.
It wasn't. It was like, it was
reasonable.
Yeah, it was reasonable.
And I had this landlord who was super reasonable.
If anyone has curious about how much real estate was in Hamilton, I think it's like one of those real estate websites. You look at like past histories, and we're talking like on James Street, like houses were going for like 100.
Well,
or 70.
Hopefully the Sonic Gunning guys won't mind, but I was partners in the building. I got the opportunity. It was the building next to us, which is at least 4 to 5 times the size of ours. 22-24 Wilson. It's 2 buildings sort of fused into one. We bought that together in, I can't remember what year it was, but it was probably 93, 94, and I think it was $80,000.
$80,000.
Yeah, and it's listed now for $2 million.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. It's just the property downtown. You couldn't give it away. You couldn't give it away. I know, right?
I know. But I'll tell you this, and for those who don't know Hamilton, I hope we're not 100% boring you, but also like I know that this is a story in your community as well.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Like this is not just a Hamilton thing.
Yep.
But I know I moved here 10 years ago, and with the same idea of like, it's a place I could live, I can afford this and that. And even 10 years ago, I had friends going, You're moving where?
Yeah.
And that was not that long ago.
There's
and
a real stigma here. Negative.
And like I feel like within the last 10 years, that went away.
Yep.
But now we have post-COVID issues. So it is fascinating that what you're talking about in the 90s is like lasted for decades. So here's my question for you.
Sure.
Because you started in the 90s, grunge era.
Yeah.
CDs are becoming a thing. And also from my recollection of the 90s was, we would go to HMV. We would go to these big stores. How at that time did an independent store like yours compete against the HMVs?
Well, that's an interesting question. So it sort of happens in any industry where, you have these huge conglomerates, and they have deep pockets. They may have many locations, which sort of indicates that they could get together and do this volume buying, get lower prices. So how does the little guy compete? Well, the bigger the corporation is, the sort of more, not loopholes isn't the right word, but the more niches they can't fill, because it ends up getting driven by some guy in an office who's not even in the store.
He's looking at numbers on a spreadsheet.
Sure. And that's how, back, I think it was Music World, that they showed me how they order. It's just by numbers. So it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be big next week. It's like, we sold X amount of product 1, 2, 3 this week, so we're going to order 2 more for next week. Like everything sort of was based on sales and charts and things like that.
Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
Why like you wouldn't have done that?
No, ours was, and it's still a formula today. It's a lot customer driven. So I've been in music, almost 40 years altogether, and actually over 40 years now. And there are people coming. I get asked for 10 bands a week I've never even heard of. So it's a lot of it's customer driven. And the thing with independent stores is you'll note, even with the grunge thing, Sub Pop was a label that wouldn't have been carried by a mainstream store back in the day. And so a lot of the independent stores, because they have their, pardon the pun, ear closer to the ground or whatever, you know what I mean? They're a lot closer to the music that's going to be big and these trends that are going to be big, that they will stock things and make actually the trends happen. So that's a niche, and it's a customer service thing. I remember one story was, I became good friends with Wayne Smith, who managed the large Sam the Record Man that was in the Tivoli here. And they had just opened a mega store when we came, and it was one of their flagship stores. It was just beautiful. But, several years down the road, he was telling me, we stopped taking Christmas orders in November. And I'm like, what? Like, we take Christmas orders till December 22nd, if we can get it in by the 23rd so people can pick it up.
Why would they? Why?
Well, that's the thing. So there, once again, this goes back to the corporate structure where they would order something, but it wouldn't be to the label or the distributor would have it. It would go to head office. Warehouse. Head office would go to the label or distributor. The label distributor would ship to head office. Then it would come. They couldn't turn around a Christmas order to guarantee it, or with a reasonable expectation of it coming in. So they cut off November 1st, they would cut off ordering for Christmas, which doesn't make any sense at all. So, that's a perfect sort of nutshell example of how a small independent store, like if somebody came in and said, oh, do you have this genre music or blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no. And if a couple people more came in and we didn't have that or a certain artist, I'd be like, I'm going to research that. We're going to stock that for next week. Because something's going on. It's either viral, like when we're talking these days, it's like, okay, it's an Instagram hit, or...
Are you noticing that's happening these days?
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And it's great because
you'll probably get like 3 or 4 people one day coming in and be like, oh, we got to get this.
Some things just spike. And the neat thing about it is it's not just new music. So you get a show like Stranger Things, for example, and then all these teenagers are like, Kate Bush running up that hill. I'm like, how do they know that? Because I don't watch Stranger Things, right?
That's your era. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
Twilight Zone.
It's neat that way. So not only is new music broken, like, there's no sort of trickle down radio effect where, okay, this is in high rotation on blah 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 FM. It's like, it's the internet's out there, so anything's on high rotation if it becomes viral. Yeah. So, and it can be from any era. So what's really neat is like a lot of 60s singers, and there's different artists who are experiencing a renaissance.
Yeah.
Like Kate Bush, I think was the first number one. Yeah, and even country artists, it's genre spanning, jazz artists, old soul artists, because something gets picked up as a, like I watch a lot of Cute Animal videos, and there's a Christina Perri song on there, and then who I didn't know, but there's one song that's a female vocal. Chances are, if you watch 10 Cute Animal videos, it'll be on 8. It'll be the little snippet from that song that's on there, and it's like that sort of driving the market to a big extent now.
And it has such a power that people are coming in to buy physical copies of these artists.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, so an artist will be dormant in a sense, like we'll stock something, it'll be a great album, and it'll just sit there, and then all of a sudden a year later, it's like somehow it's morphed into like this popular thing. So usually, if things are popular and on the radar, we'll get pre-orders for it, or it'll start selling within 30 days of release. But another thing that's interesting too is sometimes there'll be a digital release, we'll get asked for it, and we'll not get the physical format for like 3 months later, but people will still want to buy the vinyl 3 months later.
Right.
It's really funny. So before, everything was coordinated like to a T, where
for sure. Yeah, it used to be like the single would be out, it would go to the radio, and then everyone knows that on the 7th of December, this album's
and it would
out.
be in the store. So now it's like it's all over the place. So it makes it super hard for us to.
I was gonna say
to order and pre-order stuff, and
not to say like bringing fears into this, but like I feel like there'd be a fear of like going into a trend where like maybe you're like, oh, this is 100% going to be something. I'm sure this happens, and then it like ghosts on you.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, and what was really scary during the pandemic was that we would have to over order stuff because the supply chain was so fragile. Right. So for example, Drake's got a new album coming out, just pulling an artist out of the air. We can probably sell 10 copies of this, let's say, in the first few days. So let's get a month's supply. We'll get 20. But,
sure.
The problem being during the pandemic, because it was so fractured, not only in the manufacturing end, but the supply chain, was that you might order 20 copies and not see that for 3 months again. So we had to order 3 months of supply,
right,
because we didn't know when we were going to get restocked.
Yeah. So I bet the back room is just like a disaster.
You don't even know. You don't even know. Like under all of our record bins is overstock. And that's, Scott Bell, who owns Revolution Records, I think this weekend he's got another location opening in Dundas, which is kind of neat. And he's opening in the old Records on Wheels location. Mm-hmm. And he's the same as me. I'm sure he just got everything out from under his bins and on his shelves in the back room. He's got enough to open a store. I got enough to open another store, but I don't want to. I'm past the time. I've done all the heavy lifting, and I just want to make Dr. Disc the one location the best it can be, kind of thing. So,
well, I gotta say too, that location is so iconic and so special. And the building itself is actually quite unique. If anyone ever comes downtown Hamilton, you got the mural on the side.
Yep.
And I know in the past you've done performances even on the roof. And you haven't done it before. Recently.
We stopped.
I'm assuming is that a fire code thing?
No, we did it all legally. It's not technically not all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but we did get all the permits that we could get for it. I mean, it's I'm sure if some safety people came around, you got to have a barricade or something. But it's just a lower roof that's 12 feet off the ground or 10 feet off the ground kind of thing. So we did this. We used to do these in a concert with the Art Crawl monthly. We used to do during the summer months. We used to do what we used to call Raise the Roof, as you well know, and feature local bands only on the roof, 2 to 5 acts, depending on how many we could squeeze in there per the Friday night that they do the Art Crawl, and that was fun. It almost became like a rite of passage for a young band to play the roof kind of things a lot of times.
Well, for me, so I got to play one once, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I remember it.
And it just for me, that was an iconic moment.
Yeah, it's cool,
someone
right?
Who's from outside of Hamilton.
Yeah, sure.
I love Hamilton. I love it so much that I've turned this into my world. But then it's okay, does Hamilton give back to me in a way?
Right.
It's like that was like a watershed moment for me personally, because it's like, oh yeah, like I am a part of this city, I am a part of this community. And just every time I talk to you about it, or anytime I have any questions, like coming into your shop, like everyone is just so welcoming and so fun to talk with.
Yep.
I know you got Aaron.
Yep.
I know you got other people in the crew who I talked to, and I don't even know the names. But everyone, I know that it's going to be a good human being working there.
We try to be great representatives of the city, and that the Raise the Roof concert series, they cost us a lot of money. I did, there were extra staffing. I had to hire audio production. I did the permit at the time. It's not targeted at us like being so expensive, but it's like $400 or something for a permit,
and it's not nothing. Like it's not a huge amount of money, but that's not nothing.
Yeah. We compensated. Yeah. We did liquid refreshments or whatever for the bands and some store credit. So by the time it's said and done, it was like every one of those concerts costs at least $1,000.
Yeah,
at least
to do it right.
Yep, to properly do it. But for us, it was feature local talent. And you're playing Dr. Disc Roof 1 year, and maybe next year you're at the Casbah or like a local venue, RIP Casbah. But you're playing a local venue. Next year you're like on tour in Canada. You just never know. So we like to nurture creators, right? Just like you do here at the studios, right? You might get one band in on a shoestring budget, and then next album it's a little more, next album it's a little more, and they're doing bigger and better things, right? It's just sort of the same thing. Then we'd stock, if the band had like physical product,
vinyl or CD or tape,
stock it in the store. And then the last facet of those free concerts was giving back to the community. So for free, you're walking around an art crawl, you can see live Hamilton based music, right? So it was kind of a neat thing we used to do. Maybe we'll resurrect it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll play our stage again sometime.
I would love that. Anytime. You mentioned how you're curating young artists or up and coming artists.
Always.
And I know very well that you guys have like a local section.
We sure do.
Which is specific, but then also you have local music up on the walls.
Yep.
And not to put you on the spot here, but a question I have for you is like, are there any bands that have kind of like made it that kind of like first came in and starting off like asking you to put their stuff in your shop?
I think for a band these days, the resume and getting their music out there primarily online, we're just a piece of that marketing puzzle, and a very Hamilton piece of that marketing puzzle. So it's a great thing. And not only is it sort of like an ego boost for a band to see their product advertised by a store, but if you're at a concert and they say, hey, just in case you want to pick up a CD, go to Dr. Disc, there's that a symbiotic relationship where a band can direct new patrons to a store.
Yes.
And vice versa. If someone's shopping in the store, we label all our Hamilton products as Hamilton artists. So they're like, if people want it, there's one record collector I know, and he'll pick up almost any genre if it's a Hamilton artist that's featured. We feature standalone posts in our feed. We do video previews of new releases every Friday. So we've got this week we did a standalone for Cute, the band.
Oh yeah.
So it's do you know those guys? They
friends of the show, and they played Supercrawl.
They did,
on the Friday
the main
night.
stage, yeah. So, and Daniel works part time at Into the Abyss,
another great record store.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got there's no kind of huge animosity or competition. There's a big musical pie in Hamilton, and if somebody wants to open a record store, more power to them, man. More record stores, the better for me.
The way I see it is like all tides, high tide raises all boats kind of thing.
Exactly.
So like if they're getting people excited about vinyl, they're going to come to Dr. Disc and vice versa.
Yeah,
right?
It's one of my sayings too is we all rise. It's like if the stronger the music community gets, it's just the better for everyone. And if you're a smart retailer, if someone, say I was the only one in the city who sold hip hop music and someone else sold hip hop music, well, I'm gonna sell something else that you don't have. It's sort of like a friendly competition, right?
Well, that's it. And even like I'll go in both of your shops, and like you have you have some of the same staples, but you do have different vibes.
Yeah.
Right? And different.
Of course.
So my question for you, you're trying to get through, you're trying to evolve through, the HMVs, and you survived that.
Yeah, you missed a whole decade of downloading where I was just paying myself to have a job for about 10 years.
You know what? Can I tell you something? So for those that don't know, I used to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And so one of my classes, I'd always mention history. A history of music, and I tied it into one of my lessons. And I bring up Napster.
Yeah.
And I've probably told this to you.
No
kids, and not kids, sorry, like teenagers. No kids know what Napster is. They've never heard that term. Yeah. They know about downloading, but they don't know where it came from, which blows my mind because that changed my life, changed your life.
Well, think about MySpace. It's the technological errors are just so fast now. It's so fast. You look at politics or something, and it's like Roman Empire lasted X hundreds of years or whatever. But like MySpace, if you get 10 years out of a radically influential social media platform, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Before you move on to the next thing.
Okay, so tell us about Napster comes out. No one's buying CDs because they were getting too expensive.
It was bleak.
That must have been. Did a lot of shops close up? I guess HMV in those days.
It took down all the chains.
Yeah.
It took down all the big chains. And that's, once again, it's like you've got to have someone who like me, who's too dumb to quit, who just keeps going. My business consultant was great. His name was Herb. And he said he was never like, you're mental to be in this business. But he said, you know what? You should probably look for another career or something, in your spare time. And then he also said, you're just paying yourself to have a job. That was the harshest he got, to like saying, you're nuts, get out of this business. And then, I looked on the internet or whatever, and the two worst, like the top two worst business ventures, like the worst, highest risk, don't do. The first one was video rentals, like VHS rentals back in the day, like Bosphorus. And the second one was like physical music stores,
and
right?
No.
And I'm like, I didn't see that. I'm just going to keep going. But so that was, it was a real challenge. So, but you find a way to survive. Like I love the people I work with. So, I paid out of my pocket and my inheritance to keep the thing going. I was just throwing money at it for a long time. It's, running a business, everybody thinks you're like, oh, you just sit back, smoke a cigar, put your feet on the desk, and just have a great time and boss people around. And I'm not like that. I'm like hands-on, man. I'm like, live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm like, I'm going to make this work. And just, I'm going to digress again, that my investment money was, it was basically internment money. My parents I'm Japanese, 100% Japanese, and both my parents were interned Second World War, where they rounded up all the Japanese Canadians and put them in camps in the British and BC interior because it's a chance they were spies or whatever. But anyway, the redress money that it was called to apologize, the government finally recognized that we did wrong by rounding up the Japanese and putting them in camps and taking all their stuff, was $21,000 each. And my investment money that I needed as a third partner to open the store was $40,000. And they just had this, they had just gotten it, it was sitting in an account. So when they gave that to me as the seed money for the store, I'm like, I can't F this up. I've got to make it work. So that's part of the reason I kept it going so long, just as a sort of like, I've got to make it work somehow. So once people started realizing the importance of having physical objects, again, that music just wasn't convenience, downloading it and just like cutting out the middleman, that they liked curating a collection of objects, whether it's books or photos or paintings or records, then the people started slowly coming back. It was a long uphill climb, but now it's at a point where, more people than that probably have a record collection than not. And, I can say pretty honestly, in like 1999, that was not the case, right?
Yeah.
It was CDs or nothing.
Yeah.
And then it was like when the iPod came out and downloading came out and Napster for free.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I have none of my old CDs.
Yeah,
I have maybe 10, and I had boxes of them.
Yeah.
But like they all got scratched, or like I would put them in those like CD
binders,
like not even a binder. This is how lazy I was. When you could like buy the burnable CDs, like the 100 stack.
Oh yeah,
I would just stack all my CDs on a spindle, and I would just like put that spindle on my backpack. So they got chewed up and scratched and this and that, and they were kind of like. and then you lose a spindle and there's 100 CDs just gone.
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of cases in my parents' basement, and I'm like, I can't hang on to these cases. That's just sad. It's like having a hot dog bun.
Yeah. With no wiener.
with no hot dog.
That's hilarious.
So I got rid of those, but I've since repurchased a lot of my favorite CDs.
Well, that's great,
because I know that CD was important to me.
Yeah, I think what downloading did was the convenience of having it for free devalued music. So, a lot of younger people, we used to do university, during Frosh Week and Orientation Week, we used to go up to the universities and colleges, and we'd have tables and really cater to the students, give out coupons, etc. And that just dropped off a student, and I get it. It's economics, right? So I've saved all my money to come to university. I'm not going to take a bus to scary downtown Hamilton to buy a $20 CD when I can download that in my room for free. So, that sort of our main audience just dropped off the planet just almost overnight. As soon as, Napster went viral, as they say, there goes our audience. There goes our audience. But, what people realize is, the value of music declined in a sense that people got the idea that music should be free. But there's a human connection to music. So just for an example, and collecting, I think it's in people's just have this innate, an inner desire to collect and surround themselves with things that have an emotional resonance and meaning to them. Just like you were saying about certain CDs that you want to reconnect with that. Oh man, this reminded me of high school, grade 12 or whatever. So I always ask people, to prove my point, I said, what was the first song you downloaded? Or what was the first album you downloaded? Arbitrary. You have no idea. But what was the first album you bought? That first album, where you bought it, if you're with people who you listen to it with. So these objects are sort of a connection with your own personal history. And that's the importance of, for me, people are, you're like records because the sound quality is better. You like vinyl. And I'm like, that's not it. I think it's a nostalgia thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a historical thing. So, I have thousands of records. And I could probably tell you, with a 99% percentile where I got each one and who listened to it with me. And when I DJ, I still DJ with vinyl, right? Because it's a throwback. I do an 80s night, and man, I'll put on a song and it'll just take me back to when I first started DJing. I'm like, I could smell the stale beer and at the time cigarettes in the room when I was DJing with this vinyl. So I think that's the connection that's really, really important to a lot of people about music. It's about a personal history and it has a social aspect to it.
Do you have a go-to song that you always throw on when you're DJing the 80s night?
Not really. Our audience, I play a lot to the audience in a sense. We have...
Can I ask a different question?
Yeah, sure.
You're doing the 80s night?
Yeah.
If you were in the crowd...
Yeah.
What song would you want to hear DJ Mark put on?
I think for me, once again, it's a nostalgia thing. I'm the second DJ on in the night, so I'm sort of like the closer. So I'm sort of expected to play a lot of the crowd favorites. But what would really enamor a DJ for me, and I've DJ'd that's what sort of got me into music, would be if they threw on something that was from my past that I wasn't expecting to hear at all, like a really obscure track, And to me, it's funny because I played a full set. I usually have an opener, Dave Merkovich. I don't know if you know Dave, but he plays a lot of B-sides and underground stuff. And he was away last session, so I played the full 4 hours. So my musical variety and was a little more diverse than it usually is.
You could expand it a bit.
I could expand and push the boundaries. And I had one of our regulars comment afterwards. She sent me a direct message and she said, that some of those songs you played that I've never heard you play before, it just brought me back to high school. I was in high school again. And that's, to me, it's not necessarily technical skill. I think it's a sort of a blend of technical skill, the choices a DJ makes and how they put it together and how they present it to that particular audience. It's like if you're playing in a band, like some nights even though you may have a similar or even the same set list, some songs just really hit on a certain night when you're playing and you can feel the audience like viscerally react to a certain song, whether it's like you get a group of people singing along or fist pumping or whatever, you can sort of tell like they're not all the same. And it's like with DJing, it's like, yeah, you may have almost the same audience from session to session. You may have the same records. In my crates, I don't have the luxury of having 10,000 albums on a hard drive, but depending on what the audience does, you take a different route. Can
you give me an example of that? Like a live example of you're feeling something in the crowd and now you're going to make a song choice or like a vibe choice?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is when I get on at 11 o'clock, it's usually a pretty full room, and I can see for the past 2 hours how they've reacted to certain genres of music. So I can sort of see, this is a really alternative crowd. I'm going to play maybe some industrial Nine Inch Nails or Nitz or Ebb or something, or maybe it's like they're into like real like punky stuff like Gang of Four or Bauhaus or something like that. So the first 2 hours kind of like, I can sort of feel the crowd. But when you get on, you can really feel song to song if people are like, I don't look up too much. I don't want to be affected by who's dancing and who's not. So when I drop a song, I don't look up, but I can hear people going, like as soon as they hear a blend and the new song comes out. So I can sort of gauge a reaction like that. So what it does is it dictates what genres and the intensity level of energy. So if people are really into like pogoing to punk, put in a ska set, and that just drives crazy. But sometimes a ska set is like, people don't know. So so it's a reaction thing, and it's the same thing. Like when you're playing in a band, it's like, oh shit, this is going over like gangbusters or whatever. Maybe you switch up your set, or maybe you like extend a jam somewhere, or maybe you switch up your encore or whatever. Like it's not the same every night, even though it's very similar. Mm-hmm. There are peaks and valleys, and there's an energy you tap into and a rapport you have with live music that you just don't have when you're just sitting in a room alone listening to a recording. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So
when you're DJing, you're like, is it one of the things like you don't make eye contact? Is that like
I tend not to.
Is that a DJ thing or is that a DJ Mark thing?
It's a DJ Mark thing. So okay. I used to be.
I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to be influenced more by the audience, and I try not to let the audience influence me in a sense that I don't want to be worried about my song choice. If the dance floor is only half full, I'll get in my head, I gotta
crank these guys up.
Yeah, sure. I gotta play Rock Lobster or something. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be influenced like that, so I try not to look at the dance floor too much.
Yeah, you should always play Rock Lobster.
Yeah, that's a banger. I'm sure there's one B-52 song played every of the Risky Business 80 sessions.
I love it.
One of my favorite bands.
Yeah, that's totally that's like peak 80s.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So Mark, we're getting close to the end of it.
Sure.
And it doesn't feel like it because I feel like we just sat down and I could ask you 1,000 stories. Story time with Mark here.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to get a hold of you, where can they find you? I'm
99% of the week. We're open 7 days a week at Dr. Disc, and I'm usually on site. 6.9 out of the 7 days, you know what I mean? Like if I'm not on the floor, I'm usually in my office or somewhere around. Yeah. So I'm always at Dr. Disc. The DJ nights I've got the 80s night, which is the first Saturday of the month at the Corktown. Mm-hmm. And then the third Saturday of the month is a really fun night at the Capitol Bar out east on King Street. It's like King and Barnesdale, and it's a free-form DJ's choice kind of thing. So I get to play like any genre I want. It's all on vinyl. And so, like, if you're just accustomed to seeing somebody punch in a couple of keys and play on a controller, it's a really different experience. They got a great menu there, great cocktails, and I usually have one guest, and we alternate hours, and the guest can bring any records they want, and just as long as they curate them and put them in some kind of coherent order. I have a few regulars that DJ with me on that night. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yep.
I have this like dream. Now I'm not trying to plug myself to be a guest, but I have this dream of DJing. I think I've talked to you about this before.
I don't think you mentioned it.
And it's
I would have remembered it.
I bought like a $40 used controller mixer, DJ mixer. Yeah. And I've experimented at home. I have 2 record players. I'm not ready to do it live.
Okay.
And I feel in my bones that like in some time in the future I will be DJing.
Sure.
Just again to like stay creative, stay performing, and do something unique. So
yeah, the neat thing about the DJing for me, it's about sharing your personal experiences and the music that means the most to you. Like we don't play like Footloose or anything like that. Like we get into a bit of cheesy stuff, but more so it's music that means or has meant something to me and brought me to this place, where I'm sitting right now. And so, and for that music, which was outsider music at the time, and you really had to search for it, not only if you wanted the physical record, but there were very few radio stations, maybe CFNY back in the day used to play that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or you had to go to, some of the clubs in Toronto, RPM with Chris Shepard or something like that, to hear the real alternative stuff. So it's a sharing of a personal experience through music, and I think you'd be great at that because you not only have the depth of music, but you understand, you have the passion for music, you live it, breathe it, work it, and so for you to DJ, I like DJing now because I'm not catering to anybody. I'm sharing. It's not like, it's 12 o'clock and bar sales have to go up between 12 and 1 or 12 and 2. So I've got to really make people sweat. Everyone, what I mean? Like, which it used to be back in the day. But now I'm playing music for its own sake. And that's, I think, the best kind of DJing. That's most rewarding stuff, DJing I've done in my life. It's just so much fun sharing the music, and I think you'd be great at that, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have one last question about that. How many vinyls should I be prepared to bring?
Well, I mean, if you break it down for an hour, if you're not technically mixing in and out of songs very quickly, maybe a song lasts 4 to 5 minutes on average. So, you can play maybe 12 to 15 songs in an hour. But then again, unless you pre-plan your sets, you've got to have those able to take this branch, that route. Right. Yeah. So I probably bring 3 full crates of records. There's about 250 songs in different genres. They're all divided by genre. And so I can take a twist here. Sometimes we play hip hop, for example. Sometimes we don't. But if I want to, drop Brass Monkey by Beastie Boys, it's in my crate, at the 80s thing. And so you got to have options, unless you pre-plan your sets, which some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do. And if you're just starting out as a DJ, you may want to do that.
You may want to do that.
Yeah, so it has some coherency and flow, right?
That reminds me of like my first day teaching. Like, it's like everything is to a T. Or
consider it a lesson plan.
100%. Yeah.
And now I'm sure you can sort of wing it. So you've done a certain course from year to year, and you can sort of, if you don't have a plan drawn up, you can sort of cobble it together. And
the muscle memory is there. Like, that's the big thing, is like getting that muscle memory down and all that.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. But, if you're just playing songs too, like I tend to blend and mix one song into another, and they kind of flow.
Yeah.
But if you're just playing songs and just playing one song after another, they still have to have some coherency, and they've got to flow.
You mean like a BPM coherency?
No, not necessarily.
Or a tonal coherency?
Could be intensity, or even, I'm going to play, I usually play in sets of 20 for a dance floor, and then entertain an additional bunch of people by sort of switching up, playing 20 minutes worth of songs. So these little sets within a big set. So, but you have to sort of think ahead, and then if people aren't reacting to that set, where am I going to go from here, and how am I going to take the music flow there?
Well, if it's my first time doing it and people aren't responding, I'm taking myself out of there.
No, see, you gotta be, you've got to rely on your skills, and like, okay, that isn't working, I'm gonna sort of like go over here instead. That's why you have to have options, right?
And that's what I'm talking about, you being like such a staple in this community, and like you are so positive, and you're so easy to chat with, and despite beating HMV, you beat Napster, you beat COVID. There's nothing stopping you, man.
Oh man, it was there's so many kind of hurdles. Some are foreseen, in a sense that I'm battling this huge corporation, so you just dig in your heels and do things better that they can't or won't or don't. And then other things like COVID, when we shut down, I'm like, we should be back up and running in 2 weeks. It's like, you know what I mean?
I know, I had a gig that got canceled.
I know, right?
We'll reschedule for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying,
so you got to roll with the punches. That's a thing, for any person whether they're DJing or whether they're opening a small business or whatever, or whether they're just survival, is you've got to have the plan B, plan C, and you've got to sort of look at your picture now, look at your picture the next day, the next week, and just sort of adapt all the time. And that's what it is. There are we do the same thing day in and day out, but we don't. Like there are little tweaks and, dodge this way, dodge that way. You've really got to sort of constantly hone things rather than just stay in this loop, because that's where you get into trouble. It's all of a sudden, your customers are gone or your dance floor is gone. You've got to react real time to the things in front of you and the influences and the people and your audience for sure.
Your energy is flawless.
Oh, thanks, man.
34 years going strong.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Mark, again, I words can't express how excited I am to have this interview. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate it. Let's do part 2.
Let's do part 2.
All right.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
I never know how to end it. Goodbye.